All right, and we are going. It's 9 o'clock officially, so let's go ahead and first of all, we're going to pray, and we will get moving into our orientation synchronous session after that. Here we go. Father, I thank you so much for this group. There are many of them represented here tonight, and as others will join us in future times, and as we join together to look at what we need to do to succeed, give us the grace, the understanding, the wisdom, the strength to move through different obstacles that are in our way. And you know that there are many obstacles, trials, temptations, opportunities to show patience for each student before us, schedules, there are work schedules, there are school schedules, and all sorts of other things. You know, please work your way. Amen. Okay, let's go ahead and I want to share the screen here to the orientation slides. You can see it, and we will get right into it. I don't think in this slide deck, I don't have anything about myself. So let me go ahead and introduce myself really quick. My name is Mark Zockel. If you happen to see Brian Zockel or BM Zockel on the emails, that's because my first name is Brian. Are there any juniors here or any thirds or anything like that? Anybody with a third, a fourth, or a fifth? Or
yeah, I'm a junior.
Who's I got Matthew, is that you? No.
Yes.
Okay, just you. Cool. So I'm a junior as well. My dad wanted a Brian, so he wanted a Brian Jr. My mom said, no, you don't get to have a Brian. You get to have a junior, but if you want a Brian, we're going to name him, he'll go by his middle name. So that's me, middle name Mark, and you get me for English 121. I, in my previous life, have been English teacher, I'm currently English professor, undergraduate and master's degrees in English with a doctorate in education. So that's what brings me here tonight and puts me in front of you for English 121. I actually am a Crusader graduate in 2000. Maranatha graduate on campus in 2011. Yep, 2011. That's right. I get my dates mixed up too often. And so 2011, I was a Crusader. They changed the name to Saber Cats soon thereafter. So what I like to say now is that we are the Satyr Cats coming from before. Anyway, that's me. I worked at a Christian school. I currently work for a bunch of different universities doing things like this. Yeah, a lot about me. Like the Ravens, like the Orioles. My wife, Andrea, is downstairs. She worked her day as a nurse practitioner today, and she has our daughter, Allison, who is a little over 3 months old. So all that stuff for you. Here we go. Anyway, this is Comp 1 orientation. Let's keep going. So you are working with the writer's reference. Can you see? Okay. If anyone is going to be buzzing in, I just minimize my screen and seeing faces and whatnot. So don't raise your hand. Just unmute yourself and buzz in. Say, this is this is Lydia. This is Jacob. This is Matthew. This is Tim. This is whoever. Just say your name and then give the answer. If we step over each other, it's okay. But we'll work on getting everybody involved. So writer's reference is the main textbook. Page and exercise numbering has changed in the new edition. Assignments at times will be tried to give in both old and new. It just depends on what the instructions are and when they were updated. If you find any errors in numbering, please let me know right away, and I will do my best to go back and make the changes. I don't think there are any errors because we've been through this several times now, but if there are, let me know. So tonight what we're going to cover in this session, we're going to talk about the basics of the course. We're going to dip into the basics of APA formatting, the very, very basic things, and I'm going to let you ask any questions. So really quick, I say do take notes, paper or Word document. But again, if you're here with us tonight, you don't have to take notes. Now, this was the first stopping point for those who are watching this by video. You need to make sure that you have taken notes. So let me ask this to those of you who are with us now live. Does anybody have questions right now? Anybody with a question currently in the course you've already come up with? I know Tim reached out to me earlier. I know that, let's see what else I heard from. I know Dave reached out to me earlier and a few others. Anybody else with a question about the course, some way, shape, or form, something's not right, something's not adding up? Or just you love something? Lauren? Lauren, I can't hear you. Still can't hear you, Lauren. Sorry about that. Unmute you. No, not yet. Still can't hear you. Let me see if I can get into the chat here. If you want to type it out there in the chat, be my guest. But for whatever reason, your mic isn't working. Anybody else? The question? Is that a hand raise? No. All right, we're gonna wait for Lauren to type her question in here, and we're gonna answer her question, and then we're gonna move on. Ah, Nathan's joining us. Good. When we take notes for synchronous session, how do you want them to be formatted? What topics? Whatever works for you, note-taking wise. This is non-specific. All I'm looking for is that you were involved with what was said. All I'm looking for is that you didn't copy every single slide. Here's what I mean by that. Someone could just take the slides and write up notes on the slides without actually watching the video. So prove to me that you were here. Say something that only, or show me in the notes that you were here somehow, some way. You know, if I tell a joke, it won't be funny. Just record the joke and say it was stupid or something like that. Just give me some understanding that you were here. But of course, besides that, just take the notes that are necessary for you to succeed in the course. Good, no problem. Anybody else? Nathan, you just joined us. We're talking about anybody with any questions right now before we get into the meat of more into the meat of anything. Okay. I'm going to keep the chat a little bit smaller. Can you guys see the chat right now? I'm going to minimize this big screen. Okay, so here we're going into the session itself. I'm hoping for half an hour. We'll see if it's 45 minutes. So why Comp 1? Why should you become a good writer? Well, in preparation for all college writing, you need to understand you got to start somewhere. It used to be the case that when students got to college, the college could trust that the students had been trained really well because the college was a lot more picky, and you had to have a certain GPA coming out of high school and things like that. Well, now colleges do not trust that students coming out of high school are necessarily as well prepped in their writing. In fact, that's why many of you are in high school right now and you're taking these college courses, because the colleges like to reach down and say, hey, we will make sure they are prepared by offering them courses here in dual credit way if the school signs up for it, or even just for enrichment for the students themselves. So preparation for college writing comes from this class, but also it's because clear communication is very important just in any life skill or any situation you find yourself in the future. And for many of you, you're going to wind up being nurses, or you're going to wind up being something that a person would not regularly imagine writing would be absolutely necessary in. You want to be an astronaut. You want to work with your hands as a woodworker. Whatever it might be. I mean, I'm thinking you're in college right now, so you're thinking towards some kind of degree program. But let me assure you that every program you walk into is going to require some measure of communication. So even if your writing skills do not take 10 steps forward, hopefully your argumentation skills, or your reasoning skills, your research skills should be developed in this course in some way, shape, or form. Anybody else, though? There's a much larger reason for us to get strong with our communication. Someone else want to tell me what that larger reason could be? More meaningful reason, I should say, for us to make sure that our communication is as strong as it could be?
Our Christian testimony.
Very good. Who was that? I can't. Who was that? Good job, whoever it was.
Rebecca.
Rebecca, thank you. This is not Rebecca Newtshorn, but the other one, right? This is Rebecca. Good. Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, for our Christian testimony, most definitely. How can we share the gospel with those around us in the world if we are unwilling, unable, incapable of talking to them in such a way that they can understand us? That we're hiding behind some kind of facade, that we are unable to clearly articulate what God's done for us. So for all of these reasons and many, many more, not just a good writer, but just a good communicator. So these expectations. I already mentioned this to somebody, but is an expectation that your MBU email gets checked daily. In fact, for this course, you might want to do that a couple times a day, especially if you email me And I have said already in the syllabus and other places that email is where I expect to hear from you first, because I check my email. The app I have on my phone right now has, I think it's 6 email accounts on it, and I am on that app far too often, far too often. So please do shoot me an email, and that will be the quickest way of getting a hold of me. Then I do say I've given you my phone number, so if you want to text me, I'd rather have you text me before calling me. If it is an emergency situation, you can go ahead and give me a call. I'm not sure what the emergency would be, but who knows. So email, text, then call. In that order, and be very judicious of when you text or call me. Make sure you sent me the email first and I haven't responded and spent a little bit of time. So I'll respond to your email as soon as possible. You are expected to I'm expecting you to respond to emails as soon as possible as well. You are only expected to submit work that is your own. You aren't to work on the exercises with anybody else, and you are to edit your own work. Now, let me say this, because this gets a little bit touchy. You are allowed to have someone else comment on your paper, but somebody besides Rebecca, because she's given us an answer now, and Matthew as well. Someone else. What can you have someone do to a paper for you? You can't have them. Well, you tell me, what can you have someone do to a paper for you? What would be within the confines of academically appropriate without going over the lines of inappropriate?
You have a spelling on a paper, on a page, and they tell you you have a spelling here, find it, or you have a sentence that doesn't make sense, find it.
Very good. Stay on, Lydia, because I'm going to go that a little bit further. Yes, so someone can point out to you grammar mistakes. Now, Lydia, can they touch keyboard with fingers and make the changes to that paper for you?
No.
No. I'm even okay with them pointing to the screen and saying, right here, this is where your problem is. It's not here, it's right here. That's fine, but they can't make the changes for you. You need to mechanically make those changes yourself. So anything past grammar? Go ahead.
Maybe just pointing out that it's not cohesive.
Sure. Good. Yeah, they can make content critiques as well. That's not a problem. But if they're going to make content critiques, remember, let's pick on Colin. Colin, whose paper is it ultimately?
My paper.
Yeah, it's Colin's paper. No, not everybody's Colin's paper. It's just Colin's paper. It's Colin's paper. But yes, it's your paper. Ultimately, it's your paper. So you do not want, while you can appreciate their instruction, while you can appreciate them trying to give you a hand, at some point you're responsible for what you're responsible for. So make sure that you have enacted what you want on that paper, so as to be what you want. All right, let's keep going here. So mechanics. Videos and PowerPoints are available under the Videos and PowerPoint sidebar. I shouldn't have to say that, but I do. Next week's assignments will be available the Thursday before. So as of tonight, I will open up next week's assignments. Now, this is what I'm hoping to do. If I feel as though the class is not, if the class starts messing up and doing assignments out of order, or I feel like the class isn't quite ready, I may hold off on opening them until the Saturday or Sunday of the week that is to come. Some of you have already contacted me and say, hey, I need things, I might need something opened. I'm going to be out of town. I won't be able to access the internet, which that's an amazing thing, that somewhere on this planet you still can't access the internet. But you know what? I understand. I understand that happens sometimes. So someone who has read the syllabus, you tell me, and someone who's not Colin, or who isn't Lydia, or who isn't Matthew, and so on. What does the syllabus say about work that is missed, or you know you're going to miss, or something like that, absences that come up?
Don't you have to do it anyways?
Yes, you do need to do it anyway. You got to make sure it happens. Oh, was that Josh?
Yeah.
Josh, aka SpongeBob, aka Pink SpongeBob. If you, right on. I left mine in my closet. I have to have a collar on, they tell me. Otherwise, I would wear my pink SpongeBob hoodie. Totally. But yes, you are going to complete the work anyway. The work for the class is required, the work all the way through. But what about, let's say Josh is going to Tahiti and he needs to go to Tahiti badly. He's got to get the sun. He has to get some rays from the sun in the harsh winter. What happens to his work during that time? He's going to do it, but what should be his game plan going into that vacation? Getaway. Maybe it's a mission trip. I don't know.
To get all his work done before he goes on the vacation.
Yes, Jonathan, you are correct. It is what you are asked to do is to communicate to me prior and to get that work done and knocked out before the vacation is even taking place. If you turn it in afterwards, you can expect it to have the same late penalties that the syllabus says it will, unless you and I have had a conversation. So expect that if you're going away and you won't have access to a computer, which again, it doesn't happen that often, but if you are doing that, it's on you to get that work in early. So let's keep going. Late works accepted on everything except discussion forums, tests, and writers' conferences, and even then, I'm a pushover. You'll receive an email when I post feedback on one of your assignments. Be sure to review that feedback. Which is to say, when you are in My Maranatha, my MBU, and you go and you see the assignment and under the coursework assignment. So the assignment was recently you had a discussion forum, and I'll give you a grade on the discussion forum. I might make a comment there. You need to check and make sure that you have seen the comments I make. Now, for the bigger papers, what I'll do is I'll download your Microsoft Word document, and I will actually make comments on that Microsoft Word document to the side of the margins, and then you will use those comments to further your paper in the future. Okay, moving on to APA guidelines, unless someone's going to bump in with a microphone question. So everything you turn in for me, I expect to be Times New Roman 12-point font. Everything you turn into me, I expect to be double spaced, which is removing before and after spacing. Everything you turn into me, I expect to have 1-inch margins all around. Everything you turn into me should have 1 space after each mark of ending punctuation, not 2. APA guidelines in general have shifted on this from when your parents and grandparents are learning how to type on word processors or actual not keyboards, but actual typewriters, to now where, because it is a standard because it's a standard length, it's the 1 space will do. But APA does talk about keeping things spaced out well with 2 points. So what we ask for in this class is 1 space after each mark of ending punctuation, no matter who taught you or what you learned in the past, keep it to 1. And then, of course, after most of the things that we are going to be writing, we want a word count at the end of them. If you need help on that word count, on how to create that word count, I can help you with that in the future. What we're going to do right now is I just flashed on the screen. We're going to show you what this second point means. So the second point, I forgot I have a pen. That's right. This second point right here. Come on, work for me. Pen, that's what I want. This second point right here. This point we're going to now show you in as though we were in Microsoft Word. By the way, Microsoft Word document. If you have a Mac, let me ask you right now, just so I know all of those crazy ones of you out there who are using the Macs, and so we can have this conversation now and not whenever I'm getting ready to yell at anybody. I wouldn't yell at anybody. I wouldn't do it. It's not respectful. It's not appropriate. But how many of you are working with a Mac right now? Just block your camera. Just block your camera with your hand. Okay, Lauren is. Tim is, but Josh isn't? Wow, okay. Usually that's a family thing. But Tim and Josh, you guys are brothers, right? Yeah, okay. So Josh is on a PC, Tim's on a Mac. Interesting.
I'm on an iPad, so.
It's Mac enough. Anyway, so you guys need to make sure you're working on .docx, .doc, not .pages. If you send me something .pages, I do not reformat it because when I go through and I change it from a dot pages to a docx, it's probably going to come up wacky. Anybody in there working on Google Docs, or you've tried to work on Google Docs in the past, you plan on using Google Docs? You can block out your screen. Anybody? Okay, Caitlin may. Well, if Caitlin does it, Rebecca might do it too, and Jacob might do it. Okay, now I know in Google Word, I know in Google Docs you can save something as a Word document. That's fine, but it's on you to make sure that you have checked to make sure that your final product is what it's supposed to look like. It's not on me, it's on you. So make sure that your final product looks like what you wanted it to look like. Don't tell me, well, when I saved it, I saved it as Google Doc, I did this. I've been there with you. I've worked through it. Let me tell you this, Maranatha, through Maranatha's IT department, and because you're a student, you get Microsoft Office basically, if it's not free, it's very cheap to you. So please take advantage of that now, because you might even use it in the future. And it's a good time to break the Google Docs, get onto Microsoft Office, because it is still the standard in the business world to be using the Microsoft Office suite. I know probably startups might not use it as much because it could be more expensive, but anyway. So again, back here, double spaced. We're going to be showing this right now in the next slide. So the next slide, here we are under the paragraph tab. And under the paragraph tab, notice we have spacing 0 before, 0 after, and it's single spaced. If I click on the next slide, it'll show you that this is, I just circled it early for you, but these are the things that we're looking for. And the single, you would hit the drop-down menu, and it would become double. So the single, first of all, this before defaults to 0, I think, but after is at 8 by default. And single is I don't think that's the default. I think 1.5 is the default or something like that. But we want to make sure this says double, and that this is 0, and that this is 0. So heads up on that. When you are in Microsoft Word or whatever you're using, make sure that you have the correct spacing. Thank you. That's what I'm going to say. All right, so comparison contrast numbering. Notice for the comparison contrast paper, the comparison contrast paper is our first paper. It's the one, we'll have 2 drafts of the comparison contrast paper, 2 drafts of the argumentative paper. The first one, the comparison contrast paper, I'll say CC from now on. The comparison contrast paper, CC, is going to ask you to provide a header in this way, in this manner. But just so you know, this is not APA. This is actually, it's more MLA. It's a little bit, it's different, but this is what we're asking you to do. Your name, section, date, assignment with a page number, top right. This is for the comparison contrast CC paper. As we move forward though, I guess I don't show it to you. When we move forward to the argumentative paper though, you're going to have a far different first page. In fact, your first page is going to wind up being, you're going to have, let me get my pen back here. You're going to have a running header up here with your title. It's going to be a page number over here. You're going to have, actually it won't be that high. It'll be more like down here will be where all of your information is on a title page. So just so you know, that'll be the argumentative paper. It'll be later on. You'll see it coming. You'll see examples of it. But for the first paper, this is what we're looking for. Moving on. So paper expectations. We are looking for clear, effective communication. We are looking for good writing. Now, good writing is not dependent on word size or on the number of words, but we are going to ask that in this course, you look towards being succinct, which would be making your points and making them in fewer words than otherwise, because we want you to use every single word as pointedly and purposefully as possible. So often the short word is better than the long word, home, for instance, habitation. Often the short sentence is better than the long one because you are being more pointed, you're being more direct. So I'll be grading on these things. Grammar, this is an English class. Expect me to tell you to be very sure with your grammar. In fact, I'll tell you right now, and if you are taking notes on this, if you're taking notes in the video, this is the way I'm going to be proving to myself that you've actually taken notes from the video. I'm going to ask you to write down right now these 3 things. I do not want to see in any paper that's ever turned into me any second person pronouns unless it's in a quotation. That is you, your, yours, yourself. I don't want to see you. That is informal. We don't use you second person. I'm going to tell you I don't want to see any contractions. There are to be no contractions in any paper that has ever turned into me. No contraction, no second person pronouns, and no contractions. The last thing, the third thing I'll point out this time won't be the last thing, but the third thing I'll point out this time is that let's go with there will be no rhetorical questions. Leave rhetorical questions out of all the writing you give to me. And the reason for these things, especially the second person, the rhetorical question bans, you are working with an audience who's reading your work. When you sit down to read something, even you're the author right now, when you sit down to read something, you're not sitting down to read something to figure out. You are not sitting down to read something to say what it is that you believe, you the reader. So when I sit down to read I have a book over here, Introduction to Special Education. I don't expect to read, Mark Zacco believes that, so on and so forth. I expect to see, oh, this is what Smith and Taylor talk about. This is what they believe. This is what they think. Rhetorical questions and the use of you, they put the focus back on the reader. That's not where we want the focus to be. We want the focus to be on the author and the thought development, the argumentation of the author. So please keep it that way. Anyway, past that, I'll be looking at grading your sentence structure as well. Are they simple sentences, compound sentences? Are they complex sentences? So brush up on your sentence structure knowledge. Make sure it's varied. Your writing style. Your writing style has to do with being too formal, being too informal, with making sure that you, again, are varied, that you are having a collegiate vocabulary. Instruction following, because I'll help you with all of this stuff the first time around, but I'm not going to like it if I'm helping you with all of this stuff repeatedly over and over and over. And the incorporation of the writing principles discussed in class, practice assignments, they say, I say. They say, I say should be a key for you, because they say, I say will offer you a chance to see what the collegiate English world says are the cheat codes, the keys, the glitches in the system that you can use for your own purposes. Look in the back of They Say, I Say, and it just erupts with possible starting phrases and templates for you. Now here's grading numbers. Just so you know, I use these. If I wanted to, I could point to these and say, please see number 2 to find the problem in paragraph number 1. I don't usually do that. More often what I do is I just make a direct comment from Microsoft Word to the problem I see on the paper. However, going through the grading numbers, which is available under one of the menu side tabs, or one of the tabs on the menu, left-hand menu, going through this will show you exactly what I'm looking for. And at times I will refer to it, so be aware of where it is and what it is. So under rubrics resources, this is how I would use it, but I'm probably not going to use it this way because it's actually faster for me just to give you the comment on the paper. So it will be this last point. Also watch for comments in the right margin. That's where I will give my comments. And you may have to select show comments. But since I trust that you're working with Microsoft Word, because that's what's required of you, don't tell me you can't figure these, you can't see them because it's in Pages. Don't tell me you can't see them because it's in Google Docs. I need you to be in Microsoft Word when you are reviewing the comments that I have made on your paper. So again, let me plead with you, please get on Microsoft Word. Okay, and then we come to annotation. And you look at a source and figure out what the central argument it is. So the annotated bibliography is coming up very quickly, which means you're going to sit down and you're going to read a book. So I just referenced this one. Are you on a book? You're going to read an article or something. Let's just say you read this book. This is a source. This is considered a source, not for you, but possibly. Can you figure out what they're trying to say? what is their main point? Can you summarize it? Can you say whether or not the author used good evidence, solid evidence in the preparation of it? You know, if you were on the Senate floor right now and you were trying to decide whether or not the House committee come up with a passable argument for impeaching the president, you would have to say, do the authors of the impeachment thesis or the impeachment papers, whatever they may be, are they presented with solid? Are they constructed with solid evidence? Do I believe the evidence? Can you pick up any bias? That would be another great question for what's going on in the House and Senate right now, one way or the other. Not to be on one side of the aisle, but past that, can you pick up any bias of the author? For example, I hold up this book again, Intro to Special Education. Actually, I'll point to another one. I can't reach it. There's a book behind me that says Child Development, a Cultural Approach. So this author is saying that child development needs to be viewed through the lens not of biology, not of sociology, but of culture. Okay, well that's going to definitely put a bias, a spin, a worldview, a different look on child development that I might be comfortable with. But can you tell that it's there? So when you work on the annotated bibliography project, you're going to ask yourself all of these questions. But you're also going to ask yourself, how can this skill of evaluating a written piece benefit you as a Christian, and how can you use the skill to glorify God? And the answer, hopefully, is obvious, so I'm going to ask you. So let me ask you, the general, as the last thing I'll ask you tonight. When you read something, any one of you, when you sit down to read something, you are not at the point anymore in your lives where you can just simply read, oh, that was a good read, and throw it away and then move on. You need to be reading and critically assessing, evaluating, thinking through what you've read. So let me ask you, why should the Christian evaluate what they read after they're done reading it? Let's see, someone who I don't have a face on. So Megan, Nathan, or Aleda. What is the value of the Christian evaluating a written piece after they're done reading it? Megan, Nathan, Aleda. I've heard from just about everybody else. So I do need to hear from one of you. If not, I'm going to have to have you turn in your notes. All right, somebody else then from the top. Somebody else. Someone, even if you already said something.
Decide whether or not it's biblical.
Sure. And Lydia, Lauren, anything to add to that?
Well, as Christians, you're constantly going to be given information, and you have to test that against the Bible to see if it's truth. And in order to test it, you have to figure out what are they saying in the first place. You have
Sure. So biblical truth from Rebecca, Christians making sure that they are reading accurately to know what the outside is saying. Sure. Not that these arguments really change that much over time, but they could. Lauren, did you want to add something? Perhaps in the chat? Or okay, you're going to chat it up. That's fine. Yes, we'll bring in Lauren with what she says next. But what was just said, the Christian needs to be the most critical assessor. We have absolute truth before us. We must make sure that our absolute truth guides not only our worldview, but also how it is that we interact with those with opposing worldview. When we read the Introduction to Special Education by Smith and Tyler, when they make claims about Darwinianism and the way that Darwinianism will affect the abortion of babies with disabilities. How do we read that? How am I supposed to evaluate those writers, that piece of writing? What should I value? Lauren also says, all throughout Scripture, we are commanded to be checking out for accuracy. All throughout Proverbs, yep, Proverbs, very good. Glad you pointed that out, making sure that we're letting in our lives what is true. We're looking on what is true. One way to ensure that we are constantly telling the truth in our own lives is evaluating others and evaluating what we're reading, and even evaluating what we're writing as well. And we know that there was the church in the New Testament as well that evaluated what was told to them. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually pause this. I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm going to